19 years. For almost 2 decades, Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban were, the definition of Hollywood stability. Oscar winner, country superstar.
Yeah.
It seemed unbreakable.
Totally. Like a real anomaly in that world.
But then this headline drops.
Yeah.
And it's not just they're divorcing. It's Keith Urban initiated it. Left Nicole Kidman reportedly completely blindsided, just reeling.
Yeah, blindsided is the word everyone's using. And on top of that initial shock, this financial detail came out that is just staggering.
The prenup thing.
Exactly. Sources are alleging there was a specific cocaine clause, basically stipulating Keith gets paid about $600,000 for every single year he stayed sober.
Wait, seriously? $600,000 a year? For sobriety?
That's the allegation, which could mean, what, over $11 million? A huge payout tied directly to the recovery she famously helped him through.
Wow. So the love story, the support, it suddenly looks almost transactional. And now he walks away, allegedly getting paid for the very thing she fought so hard to help him overcome. That's rough.
It's a lot to process.
Welcome to Starscope Report.
This is where we dig into the Hollywood drama, the music world shakeups. Basically, we get behind the headlines.
And today, we're doing a serious deep dive into how the Kidman-Urban myth just completely collapsed. How did this image of perfection hide such a massive private split?
We're going to look really closely at those public moments that, in hindsight, were hiding the cracks. We'll trace the timeline of when they actually separated and break down those super awkward interviews Keith Urban gave. They were major signals months before the divorce papers.
Get ready, because we're going to show you how their biggest public display of love, that AFI tribute, actually became this tragic intro to the whole bitter end.
Okay, so let's set the stage first. 19 years, that's the narrative they built. Met at that G-Day USA event in 2005, married pretty quickly in Sydney.
Yeah, and right away they were labeled different. Stable, always showing affection, seemingly rock solid compared to other Hollywood couples.
They really did seem like the exception, especially with the two high-powered careers.
And Keith was a huge part of crafting that image, wasn't he? Through his music.
Oh, absolutely. He wasn't just, hinting at her. He put her right at the center of his songs. The Fighter, Gemini. Those are basically anthems about her.
It really cemented her role, the muse, the reason for his happiness, all of that.
Yeah. Which makes you wonder, maybe that perfect couple pressure got to be too much.
Kidman herself kind of warned about that, didn't she? I remember her saying something like, if you think you're the perfect couple, you're probably heading for trouble.
Wow. Yeah. That hits different now. Almost prophetic.
But the absolute peak of that public myth, the high point, was actually pretty recent. April 2024. The AFI Life Achievement Award Gala for Nicole.
Oh, man, that AFI gala. Everyone remembers it. It was seen as this ultimate Hollywood romance moment. But looking back now, it feels like the setup for a tragedy.
I remember his speech. Keith was so raw, so vulnerable. He talked about how just 4 months into the marriage, his addiction issues nearly destroyed everything. Blew our marriage to smithereens, I think he said.
Yeah, he did. And that led to the 3 months in rehab right at the start.
And standing there in front of everyone, he basically framed it as a salvation story, right? Not really equals, but...
Exactly. He said, Nicole pushed through every negative voice, and she chose love. He literally called her his savior, elevated her to this almost saintly role.
Okay, so let's talk about that. What happens psychologically when you establish that kind of dynamic savior and saved, especially knowing that just months after that speech, he's the one ending it?
Well, that speech kind of locked that dynamic in place, It made her the essential one, the selfless one who fixed his flaws. So when he decides to leave, the whole story flips.
Right. It's not just we grew apart anymore.
No. It becomes this, perceived betrayal, a tragedy of ingratitude almost.
Yeah.
It suggests the person who was saved doesn't need the savior anymore, and that just shatters the promise of their whole 19-year story. The world saw her sacrifice, and now that sacrifice is measured against him just walking away.
But before that emotional break became public, there was a physical separation happening. If spring was the peak of their public love story, summer 2025 was definitely the season things fell apart privately.
Yeah, multiple sources confirmed they started living apart right around the beginning of summer. And it wasn't just, taking a break. It got serious when Keith actually bought his own separate place in Nashville.
He moved out of the family home, the one with their daughters.
Yep. Moved out of the house he shared with Sunday Rose and Faith Margaret. And insiders basically said that was the moment, the point where the split felt, inevitable.
But the public didn't know yet. They still had one more public appearance together, right?
Yeah.
June 20th, that FIFA Club World Cup match in Nashville. And it got a lot of scrutiny later.
Oh, definitely. We looked at what body language experts like Judy James said. She described them as awkward and unusually disconnected.
What did she point out specifically?
Well, in the photos, Nicole looks really tense and rigid, almost like she's struggling to keep it together. And Keith, he seemed unresponsive, leaning back against a rail, kind of defensive looking.
Okay, but how much can we really read into just photos? Maybe it was just a bad moment?
Yeah.
Or are we just projecting now that we know?
That's a fair question, but I think the body language here acts more like confirmation, especially when James pointed out this tiny detail, Keith's tongue poking out briefly. She said that can signal rejection or inner anxiety.
Like a physical tell.
Exactly, a little physical sign of discomfort.
Yeah.
And when you already have insiders reporting they're living apart, these nonverbal cues become pretty compelling evidence, not just guesswork.
Then just 5 days after that awkward appearance, June 25th. It's their anniversary.
The anniversary paradox, yeah. Nicole posts that really sweet black and white photo. Happy anniversary, baby, at Keith Urban, which totally fits with the reports that she was desperately fighting to save the marriage.
She's trying to keep the narrative alive.
Absolutely. Using social media, using their history, trying to pull it back together. But Keith's response, or really his lack of response, was just deafening.
What did he do?
Nothing. The guy known for writing entire songs, pouring his heart out about her, he made no post himself. He just replied to her post with a single heart emoji.
Wow. One emoji. From the man who wrote The Fighter for her. What does that even mean?
It means the performance was over for him. That's what it signals. She's trying to maintain the public story, and he responds with the absolute bare minimum. It's a public refusal to play along anymore.
A total withdrawal.
Completely. Emotionally, publicly. He was basically saying, I'm already gone. Reducing 19 years of very public devotion down to one tiny, dismissible digital symbol. That silence, that single emoji, that's louder than any argument. That's the end signal.
And that withdrawal wasn't just happening physically or on social media. It became incredibly obvious whenever Keith did media appearances that summer. People noticed.
Oh, yeah. We know that before all this, Keith actually seemed to enjoy talking about Nicole in interviews. He loved chatting about her. But that totally flipped. He got super guarded, evasive. It was like watching distress signals flare up in public.
Okay, so let's break down those interviews because they really do show him rejecting their whole public story piece by piece.
Right, let's do a forensic breakdown. Case study number 1, July 2025. He's doing a radio interview with Mix 102.3. And a co-host asks him, kind of playfully, what he thinks about Nicole doing love scenes with beautiful, younger men like Zac Efron.
Okay, how did that go over?
Badly. According to the host, the Zoom call just connected. Abruptly, right after the question.
So they hung up.
The hosts and their producer were pretty convinced his team deliberately cut the call because he was clearly upset and just refused to even go there, didn't want to talk about her career, her intimacy on screen. Anything.
That's a massive shift from the proud, supportive husband persona. He couldn't even handle a joke about her job.
Exactly. Then, case study number 2, also July. He's talking to Ryan Seacrest. Seacrest asks a pretty standard question about how they manage their crazy schedules, the logistics of 2 huge careers.
That seems like an easy one, right? Talk about teamwork, support.
You'd think so. But Keith's answer was incredibly short. Really. He just said, it's a job. Yeah, life is in session.
It's a job. Wow.
Okay.
That's cold.
Right. He basically reduced their entire partnership, this epic love story he'd sung about, down to just work logistics. Like they're just colleagues managing schedules. Fans who saw the clip later commented he looked very uncomfortable.
He wasn't just dodging. He was actively redefining their relationship in public.
He was, reframing it from romance to just professional coexistence.
Okay, and the final one, the fate interview. That was September, right? Closer to the actual filing.
Yeah, September 2nd. Just weeks before the divorce news broke, someone asked him that really personal question. Was it fate that he and Nicole met? Tapping into their origin story.
And how did he handle that?
Oh, he got visibly agitated. His answer was blunt, totally emotionless. He just said, no idea. Anyway, moving on.
No idea. About meeting his wife of 19 years.
Yep. And then he actually took off his jacket, like this physical move to shut down the conversation completely. That clip went viral because it was such a clear, almost aggressive rejection of their whole romantic beginning. He just dismissed the legend they'd built.
So looking at those 3 interviews together, he dismantled everything. He rejected the intimacy talk, reduced the partnership to a job, and then just flat out dismissed the idea of a fated beginning.
Exactly. He was systematically tearing down their public image. He just wasn't willing to play the role of the devoted husband anymore. The performance was truly over. And then, finally, the quiet signals, the awkward interviews, it all led to the official end. The separation was confirmed as September 29th.
And Nicole filed for divorce the very next day in Nashville, citing irreconcilable differences, the standard phrase.
Right. But we know the legal wheels had been turning for a bit. Sources confirmed they'd already signed a detailed permanent parenting plan for their daughters, Sunday Rose and Faith Margaret, sometime in late August or early September.
So the decision was made earlier.
Seems like it. And the consensus from pretty much everyone close to the situation is that the split was definitely one-sided. Keith initiated it. Nicole was, again, reportedly blindsided. She'd been fighting to save the marriage right up until the end.
So what are the reasons being given?
It's a mix, as it often is.
Yeah.
You have the sort of standard explanations. They grew apart, the distance with his touring and her filming Practical Magic 2 in London, intimacy faded. The usual suspects.
Plausible.
But then there are other whispers, too. Some talk about career friction, the idea that maybe Nicole felt she wasn't getting the same support back during her recent career upswing, especially after years of prioritizing his music.
An imbalance, maybe.
Possibly. And then there are the more vague, cryptic reports about going through some stuff, making questionable choices. That's fueled some unconfirmed rumors about, a possible other woman, but nothing concrete there.
Right. But let's circle back to what seems to be the deepest source of hurt for Nicole, that alleged cocaine clause.
Yeah, we have to be careful here. It's obviously a very sensitive and explosive claim. But multiple sources allege the prenup stated Keith would get that estimated $600,000 for each year of sobriety, which adds up to over $11 million.
It just sounds so strange. Are we sure it was only tied to sobriety, not just part of a bigger asset division? Because framing it as a direct payment for sobriety feels incredibly transactional, almost like a reward system, not support.
The reports specifically link it to maintaining sobriety after that early rehab stay. And while, yeah, all prenups are complex financial deals, the optics here are just terrible. And that's reportedly why Nicole is so furious and feels so betrayed.
Because she was the one who helped him get sober. She was the savior from the AFI speech.
Exactly. She chose love, facilitated his recovery, and now, as he ends the marriage, the contract allegedly forces her to pay him millions for that clean time, essentially rewarding him financially as he walks out the door.
It's the ultimate bitter irony, isn't it? That clause completely reframes that AFI speech, her act of choosing love. It potentially turns it into this weird, contractual, financially incentivized deal.
And that's the deepest cut. It weaponizes their most romantic, most defining public story against her right as he leaves. The end of this 19-year marriage, it really is this powerful lesson in the huge gap that can exist between a public image and the private reality.
Yeah, it wasn't some big dramatic public fight that ended it. It was actually the opposite. A series of these quiet, really uncomfortable refusals.
A single emoji.
A clipped answer in an interview.
A suddenly disconnected call. It shows that sometimes the biggest signs of trouble aren't the loud arguments, but actually what's not being said, what's being held back.
It makes you look back at their whole history differently now, doesn't it? Those grand gestures, that narrative of him being saved by her. It's all completely recast now that he's the one who initiated the split.
Yeah.
Blindsiding the woman who, by his own account, saved him.
And that really leaves us wrestling with this fundamental question, how does a relationship ever really move past that core dynamic, the savior and the saved, especially when the one who was saved decides to leave the person who sacrificed so much to do the saving?
It's a heavy thought to end on.
It is.
You've been listening to Starscope Report, where Jordan and Jamie uncover the stories shaping Hollywood, music, and pop culture. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.